founders, connect with decision makers and tastemakers and people writing checks and accelerator programs. And today we're doing something a little bit different. And I'm super excited because I got my co-founder and CTO, Caleb Martinez. And we got a good friend of ours who's, he's been working closely with Caleb. And he's a friend of ours from Atlanta Tech Village. And he's been helping us with our new app, Aleem Charan. Damn, he just told me Charanya. Is that right? Did I say that right? Aleem Charanya.
You nailed it. You got it. The second time.
Whew. Sorry, he just told me that twice. I used to be smarter before I had twins, I promise you. What's up, guys?
What's up, James? You always kill me with the welcome, man. I love it.
You like that?
Yeah, I do.
Always firing on all cylinders. That's the way it's got to be.
Welcome. That's how we do it. So look, for those of you who don't know, first of all, if you're listening in, let us know where you're coming in the chat. What's going on, Jesse? Good to see you, my man. Let us know where you're coming in from in the chat. Please share this with your followers on social media. I know there's some share buttons depending on where you're watching. Share this out. Let us know. We're going to get to all your questions if you have any questions. This is good, Jesse. I'm so glad you're here because I know Jesse's got this really cool app called KidLink. Is it KidLink Tech or Kid Tech Link? Just drop that in the comments, Jesse. But it helps single parents who don't live with their children do homework and stuff with their kids. And I know he's been having a hard time getting his app built. So, this might actually be like super helpful for you, Jesse. So I'm expecting a lot of questions from you. So let's get right to it. Aleem, how do you describe Ambitious Labs and why did you start it? Like, what is it?
Yeah, absolutely. So Ambitious Labs is a virtual academy for people who don't know how to code, but they have app ideas. So we started Ambitious Labs because we saw no-code tools pop up like FlutterFlow. I've been a developer for 10 years. And then last year I started experimenting with a no-code tool called FlutterFlow. And I was like, nah, you can't build apps without coding. Like, it's never going to be as good as it needs to. Like, we're always going to have to code. And, just my opinionated developer self was always just like, no, this can't be it. But then one day the stars aligned. I tried out FlutterFlow and I was like, damn, this is the dream no-code builder. Like, it's writing code for you. It's got all the integrations you need. It connects to Firebase. It connects to APIs. Like, holy crap, like more people need to know about this. So then I spun up a really basic like ChatGPT kind of powered app, while I was working my day job. And I started generating revenue in like a week after launching it. I threw up a paywall that was super easy to integrate with FlutterFlow. And then I was like, oh my God, the barrier to entry for app development has just been brought to like nothing. And nobody's talking about this. So I ended up quitting my job and starting a virtual school because I knew there were more people who maybe weren't like me who could code, but like who had ideas and thought they needed to go to Upwork or hire a developer and pay thousands of dollars to get an app built, but really they could do it themselves. So we didn't always start out this way, but now we are a virtual school teaching people who have ideas how to build them and bring them to life without having to code them.
Okay, so that's super interesting. Let me circle back just a little bit because I don't think I said this at the top. So Caleb is my co-founder for Kabila and my CTO, and Caleb scrapped our code. We were building our app MVP, after we finished Techstars Austin and spending a whole bunch of time talking to customers. We started building our app, and Caleb just decided to scrap the code. Like, nah, we're not doing this no more.
Yeah.
We're going to FlutterFlow. I was like, say what now? He's like, yeah. So in just like a couple of weeks, we had something working, and shortly thereafter we have our co-founding match MVP up in the Google and Apple stores. So talk a little bit, Caleb, about why you did that, if you would.
Yeah. I mean, James, like I was working on it for months, spending hours and hours on it, trying to balance founder life with coding, developing. It was hard. So when Aleem kind of showed me this tool, I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I was like, let me check it out more. So me and my brother started building out actually an admin dashboard for Kabila. That's what it started as. Just want to test it out.
Oh, what dashboard?
Admin dashboard.
Admin, gotcha.
Yeah, actually, we threw it away too because we didn't. It was our first version, so we're just learning. We're just kind of like throwing it together. And pretty much we actually just we joined Aleem's cohort, and I was like, this is dope. Let's do it. because there was like kind of 3 basic needs I was looking for. One of them being a community, and Aleem had that community with FlutterFlow, and FlutterFlow also has a team of developers working around the clock trying to get new features out, to also trying to work with making sure they have the right Apple and Android kind of APIs driven, all the SDKs, making sure everything works well. Like
so pause there for a second. I think that's like super important what you just said there. So you scrapped our code because it was basically like too hard to build custom, basically on your own. Cause we don't have a team. It's like, it's just you and I. We had some consultants here and there, but like everybody, we're watching our burn rate, running out of money and all that kind of stuff. Is, everybody knows about what it's like to raise money right now. So, we got to do these things ourselves now. So you did that to move faster, presumably, right?
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, the great thing is now I don't have to build all the small little things. Like now it's a click of a button to have these huge, like basic features that you need in an app with one click of a button. And so that really let us prioritize core feature offerings.
Okay. What do you think about this question? So folks, if you're listening out there, 2 things. 3 things. Let us know where you're listening from. Drop in the chat. Share it out to your followers on social media. And 3, drop your questions in the comments and we'll get to as many of them as possible. So this is a great question, Terry. Can you white label your app? Can you develop a web app with React? Like, what do you guys say about that?
Yes. So FlutterFlow is actually just Flutter. It doesn't use React. You can white label your app and actually use different signage and things like that. And actually copy and paste a project to different, tenants if you want to.
To different what?
Tenants. Just like, if you had 5 customers using your app, you can just actually copy and paste it and start over. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Terry, that's actually a business model that like a lot of our students like come into Ambitious Labs to actually execute. Like they build an app once for a certain group of people. And then they say, hey, like our business model is to, for example, if it's an app for students, for say college students, they want to sell it to various colleges. They don't want to sell it to the student. So yes, you can build an app once in FlutterFlow and then literally just hit duplicate on that project and then reskin it for another client. And you could sell those contracts, 5 figures, 6 figures, white label contracts. So absolutely can white label it.
That's so interesting, Caleb, as I think about some of these people we've been talking to, some of these, we've been testing these various revenue models and channels, if you will. There's some, I'm just curious if we could maybe talk about that later. That's such a great question. Thank you so much for that question.
It is a great question. A lot of people forget that business model. They think it's, you have to go straight to the customer and you have to go straight to the business. But they forget that, hey, there's this white label play where you can kind of act as like, I wouldn't say as a developer, but like as a partner to the company. That's a really cool play.
So that sounds easy, right? But after you build it and you white label it, quote unquote, so then what, do you just turn it all over to them to manage and keep it up to date? Or now you having to keep that up to date yourself?
I think that's where the like monthly retainer comes in. You could charge, $3,000 a month and be like, hey, you get 15 hours of premium support every month. And now you're on a retainer, your product's getting used.
So now you're becoming a little pseudo dev shop.
Pseudo. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Well, but if you have a comparable product and you're keeping it up to date, that's just a matter of, once again, like copy and pasting, right? So it's really no work to do. Yeah.
And nowadays there's so many like small acquisition shops like microacquire.com, or I think there's one called, I think now it's acquire.com. And there are a bunch of sharks out there just looking for small SaaS products to gobble up. So even if you get a couple customers paying you, even if you're making $5,000 a month, there are people out there who will pay you 5x that just to cash you out and bring your product in their portfolio.
Holy crap. Well, I mean, I know this is a little off topic, but would you do that?
I mean, it really depends on the motivation of the founder, right? Like if I'm just trying to escape my day job, get some financial freedom while working for myself, then yeah, why not? But if I want to make the next $1 billion business, it's probably not the exit opportunity for me.
Right. Well, I also think there's maybe some room in between there where you let them take it, but maybe you do some kind of revenue sharing, right? Because if it does take off, I mean, I would still want to participate in that upside, right? I built it.
Absolutely.
So, but that's, it's a bit of a digression, but that's a really interesting thought. So Aleem, do you have any, like a quick walkthrough of something that you maybe want to show us about FlutterFlow? Do a little quick screen share there?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
And let me answer this question too.
Okay.
And Liam, you probably could touch on this. Anthony, you see that? You want to throw it up on the screen real quick?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
No, not that one. Anthony's question.
Oh, perfect. Sorry.
Yeah. So I'll tell you this. My brother was actually able to learn with me. He's not a developer. He was actually able to help me build Kabila's app in a month. So like learning the versions and things like that, he was able to ramp up.
He doesn't code at all? I thought he coded.
No, he had technical experience. I mean, he's seen code before. He's had a coding class, in college, but he wasn't a developer.
So I'm so glad Anthony asked this question. Anthony, did you go through Techstars as well? Because I feel like I met you in the Techstars Discord channel a couple weeks ago, I think. If you could drop that in the comments, let me know. But I appreciate him saying that. And Stella, shout out to Stella, who's always showing up for our events. We appreciate you, Stella. Yeah, like I'm a non-technical developer, and I hear like no code. So I think so. We talk about like Bubble, Bubble.io, Bubble.io, right? That's a no-code tool. That's not easy to learn for people who don't know how to code, right? Yes or no?
I would say, I mean, everything's a learning process, right? So it's just learning the technique at that point. The reason that I don't like Bubble is just because it's not as scalable as FlutterFlow.
That is one of the knocks on it. But so initially, when we were building this, I had somebody else that was helping me with this. He was more of an architecture person, technical person, and was having all these problems with Bubble. So I just walked away thinking that, because I listened to you all describe FlutterFlow, and the way you just answered that question, Caleb, it just seems like it's super easy for somebody like me, for somebody like Anthony was asking, to just pick it up very quickly and hit the ground running. You're saying that's possible, yes?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So I would say like the way we coach it is, although you don't need to know how to code, you do need to know full stack development.
What does
and there's
that
a
mean?
distinction, right? Like full stack development means you need to know all the pillars of software. What's a front end? What's a back end? What's a database? What's an API? And how do you connect all those things together like building blocks, right? Now, gone are the days where you have to write each line of code. But if you can think in terms of building blocks and systems, you can put it together. So I would say like the learning curve is kind of flat and then shoots straight up, because you can easily put together the UI. Like UI is super simple. You just come over here to the left-hand side, you grab a piece of text and you just drop it on the screen, right? Like the UI is easy, but then where the complication comes in is like designing the database. So like, how do you bring the UI to life? When I click on this save button, what's actually happening? That's like the biggest mystery to like non-technical people. When I ask that question, hey, what do you think happens when you click a button on an app? Like that's the gap that we solve for. Like, and most people don't know that. They don't know that when I click on save, I'm actually dispatching an API call, and that's connecting my front end to the back end. Once you learn that fundamental, like now you can start thinking, okay, like how do I create a user profile, and then come over here to FlutterFlow and start putting together your database.
All right. Well,
And
let's
then
do
from there-
that. Let's do that real quickly. I'm sorry for cutting you off, but
Yeah.
so you're sharing your screen. I pulled it up here because I asked Aleem to just in 1 or 2 minutes just like show us something in FlutterFlow. Like what is this you have on your screen here?
Yeah, so like this is an app that I built called Virally. It's on the App Store. It's a social media assistant app that was kind of my first project on FlutterFlow that I built last year.
Hey, I just see a blank project right now.
Oh, you
Yeah,
do?
so
Oh, I think I'm sharing like a certain tab. All right, Windows. You guys should probably see the whole tab now.
There we go.
Cool. So this is an app that I built
Perfect.
last year. It was one of the first AI apps on the App Store. I'm not joking, but this was an app I built in FlutterFlow. It's a social media assistant. So like if I'm a TikTok creator, I can tell Virally, hey, I want to make a video on co-founder matching, and it will spit out some ideas for like videos you could make. So I built this in FlutterFlow, and it looks like this. I dragged and dropped and put it all together here. Let me show you the homepage.
So it's basically a drag drop interface is what FlutterFlow is. Like
Precisely,
blocks,
yeah.
like if you like, it's kind of like MailChimp. If you're sending a MailChimp email, they have the blocks. Is that kind of what it is?
So as far as building the UI, yeah, it's very much drag and drop for sure. But then when you want to bring the UI to life, that's when you start connecting things like the database, with Firebase, or you connect an API like Zapier, or you can even write your own APIs. So here what you see is my homepage.
But
and
writing
I
an
drag and
API
drop.
writing an API would require some technical skills, right?
Yes, you do need to know, like, okay, how do you connect to an API? Like, how do you pass data from the front end to the back end?
Hey, just you want to show them the API real quick? Just I think it clears it up a lot.
Yeah. So here, I'm actually running my app in test mode real quick, and I'm going to just demonstrate like how everything works under the hood. So what I'm doing here is like, I am testing my app locally. So the cool thing about Flutter that's different than like React or Swift or anything like that is that you can build a web app, an Android app, and an iPhone app all at the same time. And that's like super cool because now you don't need to hire 3 different developers. You just do it once. I think
That's amazing.
I think Caleb, you did exactly that.
Actually, we did not do our web app. Right now, we're just using the app for the App Store.
Okay. So here I'm like testing my app. And the way Virally works is that when you first sign up, you get 3 free spins or stars. And every time you spin like a content idea, it deducts 1 of your stars. And then if you want to get unlimited stars, you can get unlimited spins, and you can pay, me, $60 per year and get access to unlimited spins. And this is generating me revenue every single day. I don't spend any money on advertising, and it literally took me less than 50 hours probably to build this whole app. And I don't say that to flex. I say that to prove a point.
So where's
it's
the
not,
API
it's not enough revenue to cover my bills. It's like lunch money. But
but where's the revenue? The API in this
tool. So here I'll talk about the API. So here, if we click on TikTok video ideas, and I say, I have an app that matches co-founders together, and I select a mood. I'm not going to say sexy. How about we say exciting? So what happens is when I click this button, I'm actually making an API request. And that API request I wired up over here. You guys are seeing all my code, but that's totally okay. That API request is right here. It's an API that I wrote, and this is my API URL. And essentially what's happening is I'm making this API call. And in a second here, I should see my TikTok video ideas pop up.
So, but how would that be different if, like me, I'm not writing any API calls because I don't know anything about that. How would I just have FlutterFlow do that for me?
Yeah. So many apps don't even need, of course, when I want to show somebody something,
of course.
Great. I feel like that's like,
it's like my car's making this noise. You take it to the mechanic. I swear it's making this noise all week. No, it's not making
that is hilarious. Right? I never get these errors. That's absolutely hilarious. But to your point, so not every app needs to be connected to APIs. So if you were building an app like, actually, Caleb, I'm not sure how many APIs you guys needed, but most of the app is actually just reading and writing stuff to a database. And you can do that, James, without having to connect an API. You can just insert and delete stuff to a database.
Right. Okay. Let's get to some of these questions.
Sure.
So this is a question kind of we were getting to a second ago. What's the ramp up period for someone to build an app on FlutterFlow without any technical experience? I think you kind of answered that a little bit, Aleem. Yeah.
Yeah. You can come in and put the UI together pretty quickly, but then like the backend logic is where it takes some, grit, and you got to be committed. And you got to make sure that you're willing to see it all the way through, because it's not going to work the first time, but you can get it.
I also think it's just not like, being smart. Like, yeah, it's a different type of thinking on like, where things go. How should I save them? How should I call them up and stuff like that. Yeah.
So will the FlutterFlow development team help you with that?
There's examples online how to kind of structure out. It's literally more mapping information to data, like an actual like field, and it comes to experience really.
Okay, so that sounds really scary what you're telling me there, because basically you're telling me like, yeah, nah, it's not going to be super easy to do. But so Aleem, so let me put this back up on the screen. So you have a community, right?
We have a whole school for this, for exactly that reason, because it is a bit of a learning curve, but we know that there's a lot of people who are nights and weekends builders out there who are working full-time jobs, working late at night, in the morning, and we don't want those people to feel alone. And that was kind of why we built this whole community, was so it's not just a community, but it's an academy where we teach
Yeah.
you those fundamentals and kind of bridge that gap.
Yeah. Okay, dope. Somebody goes back to some of these questions. Please keep the questions coming. I'm gonna try to get to them here. So this is a great. Here's another question from Terry. What if you already have an MPP developed in beta? Why would you want to transfer it to FlutterFlow? Which is exactly what we did, Terry. What are the benefits, risks? Can you set up the metrics on the back end to measure KPI and have report out to your B2B approved users, etc.?
So end of the day, it really depends on what exactly the use case and things are. But for me, I'll tell you, how we transferred. I actually transferred a lot of our data from my old database over to Firebase, which was pretty easy. And then at that point, it was just kind of like going around and making the UI and making sure we had those data connections. Some of the benefits was that there was actually there was some cheap labor out there that could actually work on the app for pretty cheap for us and able to get things out and move fast. Like, again, when we're talking about, you get to the Android and Google Store with the click of a button. Like, I don't know who else can do that, but it's pretty awesome.
So would you say that's part of the reason why our app got approved so quickly in both Apple and Google?
Yeah, I mean, we got approved so quickly because we were kind of like, we knew what we needed to do. That's more about reviewing the app, making sure you don't have any mal content and things like that. But connecting those pipelines, like now I can make a change today and it'll be probably reviewed by tomorrow, which is cool. Like if there's more doing other ways like React Native, maybe take a little bit longer, maybe like a day or two or something like that, just to be able to get that code pushed out. I would have to build out those pipelines to move that fast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully, Terry, let us know if that answers your question. Here's another question. What is the scalability of FlutterFlow? Can it host 5,000
I love
plus
this
users?
question.
Yeah, I
This
love
is my
that question
favorite
too. Yeah. Hey, Sade. What's the
So
answer?
FlutterFlow is okay. So when you are building an app on FlutterFlow, you're not building a FlutterFlow app. You're building a Flutter app. Flutter is a programming framework built and maintained by Google. It's got millions of developers, a huge community. Google runs the biggest developer community in the world, larger than Facebook. So when you build a FlutterFlow app, you're actually building an app backed by Google and Flutter, which is just as big, if not bigger than React, I would say. So that's the first misconception. The second is you're connecting to APIs, and APIs can be as scalable as the API is designed to be. And the database you're using is Google Firebase, which BMW uses, Byjuice uses. There's so many companies that run their databases on Firebase. It's extremely, extremely scalable. Virally app has 5,000 monthly active users, and my bill is $1.50 per month. So
amazing.
I hope that explains the question.
No, that's amazing because that's the opposite of like some of the Google Cloud things sometimes, right? Because what was that? We had some issue, Caleb. What was that? We got
that was my fault. Yeah, there was
I remember getting that.
Yeah.
What happened though? Yeah.
They gave me money back. Yeah, it was just like a $600 bill. Yeah.
For what though? Like what was happening?
Oh, just
because
some
call leaking or something, right?
Yeah. There was like not a setup where people were changing things, but I was somehow getting a loop because of the way I was making requests. Yeah,
hilarious.
But thanks extremely scalable. Scalability is not a problem with FlutterFlow for sure.
And that's an issue with Bubble. At least it used to be, right? Which is so people were building apps in Bubble, getting into like Techstars, building an MVP. But eventually, when you got to scale, you got to scrap all that and write.
Well, so that's the thing with FlutterFlow. So like when you are ready to scale, you can one click export the code, and you never have to go back to FlutterFlow ever again. And they're not greedy in that way. They actually want you to get to that point where you detach and you run with it yourself, which I think is awesome.
All right, so we got a bunch of questions here. Let me get some of these questions. Anthony says he's trying to get in Techstars. What's up, baby? Let us know if you need some help with that. We got some relationships there. Hello, Amina. Hello, Fang Guang.
This is so cool. I've never
Good to see you. Hey, drop in the text where y'all coming from now. So here's Kiana. How customizable is FlutterFlow? Working on a children's media app, streaming videos, video games, gamified learning. Are there any restrictions? Great question. Yes or no? Restrictions or not?
Well, what's cool thing about FlutterFlow is actually you can actually write custom code directly into the app. Now there is some snags before that hit, but FlutterFlow is always working on trying to get that integration better. But the best thing again is like, Aleem, if you want to talk about how you export to GitHub and actually have someone develop code put it in GitHub, and actually deploy it again, and still have FlutterFlow working with that?
Yeah. Short answer is there are no restrictions. It's just a matter of getting the right talent to work on it. You can go on Upwork.com, just search for a Flutter developer, and just ask him to develop something for you. He or she will implement it in your app, and they can just push it back into FlutterFlow. So you can custom code something on the side and then push it into FlutterFlow. And any competent Flutter developer that you find should be able to pull it off.
All right,
yeah.
let's get to some of these questions here. Do you need to have done UI design separately, or is it just easy to build everything from FlutterFlow?
I'm a big planner. I think it's important to plan in advance. If you're, I mean, I know Caleb, you know Torrance. Torrance is a superstar. He can do both at one time. There are some people who are just like design inclined who can do both, but I like to plan in advance. I think 70% of the work is planning, 30% of it is executing.
Okay. So did you use the expert marketplace on FlutterFlow for the help mentioned? Hey, Kaylin, what's up, buddy?
So I did not. I actually, again, earlier I was talking about my brother was kind of a non-technical person, and he wanted to do a career interesting change. So I got him to help me with it, which is pretty cool. But Aileen, if you want to touch on, where to find the expert marketplace at.
Yeah, as far as like expert FlutterFlow developers go, like we have a community of people. We refer people to our students all the time. We actually want our students to like take our course and then go out and start their own businesses. So we train students on like how to build with FlutterFlow, and then we refer them back to jobs. So like my thought process is build with FlutterFlow, go get a nice Flutter developer who can work with you side by side. So anytime you need to get unblocked, you kind of hand it off to the Flutter dev, push it back to you. And that way you're never like stopping, and you're doing it at a tenth of the cost.
That's so good. So South Carolina in the building. Hey, Harrison. That's my godmother. Hey, Harrison.
Hey, that's dope.
Yeah, Seattle in the building. Can you talk a little bit? Sade says, thank you. Can you talk a little bit? Hey, Shauna, thanks for listening in. Talk about data security and ownership. Great question.
Yeah, we get this question a bit. So like when you I'll start with authentication. So you're connected to Firebase authentication, and you can go Google Firebase's authentication documentation on like what type of encryption and compliance that they have. It's pretty compliant. It checks most of the boxes. You're hashing and storing all the like users' information. You also have control over your database. So you design the information that you're storing. So if you want to encrypt and hash and salt and do all this stuff, you have the ability to do it. We have one physician who's like in our program, and she's making sure that she's jumping through the right hoops for like HIPAA compliance and stuff. So really the answer is the control is in your hands. Depending on the tools you're using, make sure you research that tool's documentation and save the data responsibly.
Amazing. Okay, so somebody's saying, hey, fellas. Not sure who that is because it just says LinkedIn user. Drop in the comments who that is, saying, hey, fellas. Hey there, whoever that is. Appreciate you. I'm not sure if I put this up, but Terry said, Stella, you should do a UI, UX separately on Figma before you spend on building. Hopefully that's helpful. Terry says, hey, I applied for Techstars. Hey, which program did you apply to? We went to Austin. We live in Atlanta. We do talks with Techstars MDs all the time. We have relationships. So just like hit us up if we can be helpful. Let's see who else. Terry. Thanks, Terry. I was looking for a shortcut, but it's not the wise decision. Kiana says, thanks. And let's see. Terry says, can you use MongoDB, Atlas, or Firebase?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
So you can use Firebase. That's directly native to FlutterFlow, so you can read and write. And if you want to use MongoDB Atlas, you can either hit their API directly, or you can write your own backend wrapper around that.
Okay, so you just dropped something in a private check, Aline, which people cannot see.
Oh,
yeah, no, it's all good. So you're encouraging people to take you have a free course or something there. They can go to ambitiouslabs.io and then go where?
If anyone is interested in learning FlutterFlow, mobile app entrepreneurship as a non-technical founder, we have a free 45-minute long intro course where you get familiar with FlutterFlow, answers a lot of those questions and objections. And yeah, you can get started with your journey in that free course.
Love that. So, in addition to having his own community, Aleem's a member of our community. He moderates. So if you go to joinkabila.com and click our community, he's moderating a space over there, no code space over there. So you can access him in our community as well. You could follow Caleb on Twitter here, Martinez053. Man, Caleb, I freaking hate your Twitter handle. I'm sorry to tell you. I hate it so badly.
I set mine up when I was like 11.
Oh
so-
my God. I mean, I couldn't even find yours. Like this was almost as bad as Caleb. That's worse than Caleb's Twitter handle. But go follow these guys on Twitter. I was trying to like auto-populate the tag. You wouldn't even find it. I had to like duplicate the tab and then type it in and it couldn't find you. It's just a mess. Sorry, bro. You find me at James Oliver Jr. Oh, look how simple it is. My actual name. Look at that. No zeros, no underscores, none of that nonsense.
Yeah, we can't all be as great as you, man.
And join Kabila. Imagine that. That's the website, the same as the handle. Wow. Anyway, follow us, guys. Sorry, guys. Giving these guys a hard time is just kind of what we do.
No, so like real quick on the topic of like Kabila and like, inclusivity, a lot of the people we see joining our community are people from underrepresented backgrounds, which is why like one big reason I moved to Atlanta, met, James, Caleb, all the people out here. It's kind of interesting to see like without intentionally going out there, we are just attracting people who didn't have the privilege of having computer science classes in school, or they come from places with lower income, and they're trying to do things to upskill themselves to break out of that threshold. Like it's just natural. Almost 90% of our students are people of color and have not gotten the opportunity that maybe the privileged counterpart has. So it's just kind of cool to be naturally aligned with y'all's mission, James.
I love that. I appreciate you, bro. We love you, man. So do you have a hard stop now? Do you have like 2 more seconds?
No, all good. I'm here for y'all.
All right. How about you, Caleb? You good?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So I wanted to get to this question Anthony has. Does FlutterFlow have a Figma to FF plugin that can turn design into a responsive app?
Not
Figma
that I've,
FlutterFlow plugin.
yeah, not that I've seen. Yeah.
Yeah, they told us. So like we're in touch with like their dev team, and like they told us they tried to beta this, but it doesn't work all the time. It's something that they want to do this year, but not there yet.
Okay. So which link are you talking about, Terry? I think if you go to ambitiouslabs.io, where can they find the link to that class or course you were talking about?
Yeah, just hit start for free. It's a big orange button. It says start now, and it'll take you into the flow.
Yeah, because I don't think we can't post comments here. Maybe we can. I mean, if I type in hello, pop it here, everybody, let me know if you see hello for me there in the chat. I see it popping up on Facebook. Okay, maybe we can post in the chat. All right. So Stella says she's applied to Techstars. All right, you're going to inbox us regarding that. Thank you for all the help. I think you're in our Kabila community, right, Stella? So yeah, feel free to DM me in our Kabila community. If you're looking for a dope community, you could join us. Go to joinkabila.com. If you're looking for a co-founder MVP app that Kayla was just talking about, it's in the App Store. It's an MVP. It's not the most perfect thing in the world, but for an MVP, it's really freaking dope. We think it's great for an MVP. Obviously, we have some improvement we have to make. I think we should spin up a conversation about our thought process around that, Kayla, but just give people a peek under the hood of how we're thinking about, optimizing onboarding, but also being mindful of making sure we have people who are not just kicking tires or looking around, but we want people who are serious on the app. There's like a little bit of tension there. We have to optimize for that. It might be interesting to talk about that. Dennis says he's also applying to Techstars, Seattle, Oakland. Cool, good stuff. I don't know anybody out there, but I'm sure your application will be great. And finally, quick shout out. Don't get discouraged if you have an idea. Ambitious Labs and No Code will help you launch fast. Is that Moses must be listening? Who's posting that? It must be Moses. That sounds like somebody working with Lean Post. I love it though.
It sounds like Moses. I didn't know he was going to join. That's funny.
Oh, she said the caption on your lower part interferes with your box below. I'm not sure what she means there. Apologize for that. So, but if you go to ambitiouslabs.io, you should be able to find the button, presumably that Liam was talking about. So this is Torrance.
Nice.
Yes. Yeah. What's up, Torrance? Do you need to have an MVP done before getting tech shots? Bruh. Dennis, now you have watched me talk to all these different Techstars MDs, and they all Well, I would, they most of them have a different answer, but I would say, yeah, at a minimum, you need to have an MVP or no, everybody's different, right, Caleb?
Right, but it does help.
Yeah, you should have something, right? You should have a wait list, a Figma prototype, or a business model canvas, right?
Definitely need that.
Something, right? Something for sure. But Dennis, I think you're in the Kabila community. Like, go in and watch the event replays. I just last week talked to the economic mobility folks in New York. The week before that, I talked to Adam, who runs the Baltimore Equitech and the JP Morgan DC program. A couple weeks before that, I'm sure with somebody else, Anastasia here in Atlanta. They were always talking to the Techstars managing directors. Like, that's never going to stop. So go back and check out some of those event replays for any of the programs you might be interested in, Dennis. Although we did not do Seattle and the other one, I forgot. I think you said it was New York. Seattle and Oakland, we have not done those specifically. So I apologize for that. All right, Anthony, thanks, bro. I appreciate you, man. Gonna wrap up. Share this out with your friends. Let them know about us. Catch up with these guys on their janky Twitter handles. Here's one. Martinez053, Aleem_721. Oh, look at my tidy James Oliver Jr. Yes. And follow us on Twitter at Join Kabila. We appreciate everybody. Hang out, guys, before I end this here. See you next time. Later.
There you go.